So Russ was talking about his record sales. Billboard weren't really counting them right.
Said that's the
I've been
Illuminati.
saying this since the baby dropped. I don't want to say dropped, since his numbers fell off a cliff. I don't believe these numbers, these first week numbers. We've had these conversations even about some of these Hit Boy efforts and stuff like that. It's like, it's really funny stuff going on. And Russ has seemed, he's calling it out. I think he has some inside information. He knows that some of this stuff is kind of fraudulent.
I don't know. There's some banana in the tailpipe going on, Mike.
Now, I think they were doing this even back when records were actually selling, when we bought physical discs. I think they were inflating shit then.
No, I think
but now you can't even police it. It's just streaming.
No. I think it actually wasn't going on like that, Mike, because it's like, well, you used to literally ship out 1 million records, and you knew exactly where those 1 million records
You
went.
worked at a record store, so yeah, you know that part of the process.
Like literally, Mike, so how about this? It's like, I remember when Country Grammar came out, okay?
Uh-huh.
And it hadn't popped yet. We had 10 copies of it come in. Mike, it popped. 10 copies turned into 60 copies. By the time Eon and Rock, it was 120 copies we was ordering. You know what I'm saying? Like, they knew how to track it. And so, like, what Russ is speaking to is some of what we've been speaking to. It's like, how y'all tracking all this really?
Right.
And why?
How do we know it's official?
And what Russ is really letting you in on is that as an independent, they don't count your package bundles if you don't belong to a major label.
Wow.
That is literally where most independent artists are thriving and making their actual money.
Right.
And so where they're actually making their most money, they're not counting it towards actual sales because they're not with an official label. It's pretty much saying, since you chose to do this for yourself,
on your own,
we will not support you in any sort of way other than what we're forced to support you on.
Yeah. Well, see,
that's absurd.
And that's why even when we talk about the fans supporting and going out there streaming this and that, it's like, I feel like the fans do what they can, but there are forces out there who are even suppressing the fans that are out here supporting Russ. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that sucks. The fans who are actually out here supporting their artists aren't even getting that credit that they're supporting their artists.
So when you're pulling up in the cities and you're looking at this guy and it's like, man, there's like 5,000 people in here. But Billboard said he only sold 15,000 copies of his album.
Exactly.
It's like they looking at you like you crazy because it's like, oh no, all 10,000 of them done bought bundle copies of the. And it's not counting.
What did you see at Madison Square Garden when Nas did the Garden? Did you see people who were there to see stuff from the 90s, or people who were aware that he has new music out?
I mean, I still haven't released my footage from the show. I'm probably going to start posting it. But it's like I told you, Mike, 40, 16, and 30 got some of the biggest responses.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
But see, the numbers wouldn't reflect that. But when you see it in real life, it's different. Back in the day, you could actually see motherfuckers with the CD. You could see people with the record or whatever at these concerts trying to get certain things signed.
Right.
But see, now there's really no...
And what's crazy, you know what's crazy
there's no
about
real
all
checks
this?
and balances.
You know what's crazy about all this? Billboard actually used to be one of the main proponents that actually used to help the labels find the next big artist.
Yeah.
Like, I can remember when Scarface became a head of Def Jam South, he was talking about some artist that was like, he was like, yeah, I'm going to wait till such and such get about 20,000 copies sold on Billboard. So it's like Billboard used to keep track of this stuff, so that there is something about the integrity, once again, which we end up talking about a lot, being lost, because essentially what they're doing is they're changing the rules to be in bed with the record companies and to take more money from the artists. That's essentially what this is about at the end of the day.
That's what it seems like.
No, it ain't what it seems. It's like, that's exactly what it is. It's like there's like actually a laid out blueprint plan that says, well, I don't care, you know, how great your music is. If you're not signed to a major label, we're not counting this bundle, which should count as multiples. You get what I'm saying?
That's the problem with the fact that
you got a vinyl.
Music is essentially free, right? Yeah. And so you wouldn't be able to play these games back when somebody had to pop the trunk and, like you said, either sell that unit to somebody or get that unit in the store and somebody's responsible for that unit. You can't play those games. But when you have to stream and things like that, it's like it's up in the air. We can change the numbers or whatever.
Mike, I can remember when Ludacris came to Manifest in Charlotte with Incognito and signed our consignment sheet and bought 20 copies and signed the stuff, and we put 20 copies of Incognito on the shelf, and we watched as it sold. And you know what I mean? We watched him blow up through our record store, and it's like we watched it get repackaged and come back out through Def Jam later the next. You know what I mean? It's like we watched all that happen. So it's like, no, I know that it actually used to happen, and I know it's not happening the same way that it used to happen.
So how does an independent artist really get that level of credit?
Right. You used to be able to, like, literally, Mike, like, how about this? It's like I can remember when I ordered my It Was Written CD from the UK because it had Silent Murder on it, Mike. I could go into the system and see from our other 7 stores how many people had ordered the same copy as me of that album. It's like
checks and balances.
There used to be full accounting and check and balances from the record store all the way up to the label, and you knew what you were getting. We knew what we were getting months in advance. When Volume 3 was dropping, it's like, okay, we're getting 300 copies of Volume 3.
Right.
It's coming out on New Year's Eve. It's Jay. Do It Again is buzzing everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, that's what the whole terminology shipping gold was. Like, you know, you done shipped 500,000 copies.
And so in the labels,
and we'll see what happens.
And the labels and the people in charge are calling the record store and are like, boom, what's such and such?
Right.
What's such and such sell? What's such and such? And getting your numbers, you send them the sheet. It's that. You know what I'm saying?
Antonio with the Super Chat says, I was hoping that Nas would get another #1 album in this decade, which would make him the first to do so in 4 different decades.
It's not over
How
yet.
these numbers are being manipulated, I'm not sure if it'll happen. To me, this is kind of like a Hall of Fame, baseball Hall of Fame thing with Barry Bonds. To me, at this point, those charts don't mean anything. We can't quantify them in the same way. Like, you know what I mean? Like when we see,
if you were there,
when we see when we see like these stats where it's like such and such has passed Aretha Franklin with the most #1s, or such and such has passed Michael Jackson the most top 10 singles. It's not the same.
I mean, and that's great.
It's not.
And kudos to them. But this is what I mean is like having more doesn't mean having better. It's like
But they're not playing on the same field either. Can you imagine if Michael Jackson was in the streaming era? You know what I'm saying? Like, if we were sitting here gauging his numbers based on how many times somebody played this record or how many times somebody went on YouTube and tried to learn the choreography to, you know what I'm saying,
That's
Smooth Criminal or something.
That's what I mean. Just imagine what life would be like for him in this era, just with Thriller, Mike.
Yeah.
Imagine how many times we as black culture
we would
watched
play this shit
over and over again. Mike, there were days where I had people who I knew that literally would pop that Thriller tape in and would play that shit all day.
I mean,
over and over.
110 or 15 million people bought it for a reason, because people were playing that shit over and over. You got the Halloween theme song and Thriller in itself, then you got the PYT and all of that stuff. Like,
yeah, Human Nature.
Yeah, I think Human Nature is a top 2 Michael Jackson song.
I can't help it. Might be my favorite Mike song.
Favorite and best are 2 different things, but I think that
Human Nature might be.
I think Billie Jean's his best song. I think that Human Nature is his second best song. Third, if you ask me today, Mike, I might say Off the Wall.
I don't know, Mike. Rock With You.
That's what I'm debating. I think that Rock With You would be 4 and Can't Help It 5. That's my 5.
Yeah.
And I think Rock With You is the perfect Michael Jackson song for the age that he was at that time. Like, you couldn't have written a more perfect song.
Get on the Floor is a personal favorite of mine too.
Love that record too.
Yeah.
And you know, rest in peace to Rod Temperton. He wrote, most of those songs I mentioned.
Look, he wrote a lot of that.
Rock With You and Off the Wall. I think that the Johnson Brothers was Get on the Floor. Michael and the Johnson Brothers.
Sounds like the Johnson Brothers. It's funky.
Yeah, that bass line was crazy.
Yeah, that's what I
mean. But yeah, the numbers game, man, and the way that people are scoring these #1s, and I know we were really pushing for records to get charted and, you know, for the fans to support their artists, but maybe that's why I've been less than enthused about it, because I know that these numbers just ain't coming out right. Like, it just doesn't. The Baby changed me. You know what I'm saying? When I saw how big The Baby was, and then when he went on stage, said what he said, and the mainstream media canceled him and his numbers just fell off a cliff, I'm like, the fans ain't doing that. Something else is going on. It don't make sense.
One day, the person that's responsible for this is going to be exposed.
I think one of the big things is, and we learned this from station head.
Because somebody's responsible.
Yeah. There's always a responsible person. We learned this from station head, though. If we do a station head, we play a song, we got 400 people in the room, it counts for 400 streams. So what does that count like when it comes to commercial radio? When they have a broad, a bandwidth of reaching 1 million people, and let's just say Hot 97, for example. Let's just say there's 200,000 people listening to the radio station at one time for whatever reason. If Flex plays a record, does that get it 200,000 streams? Or if that radio station's playing that same record 10, 15 times a day, what does that do for the streams?
We don't know anymore.
I don't know. And so does that add legitimacy to the number? Because honestly, it wasn't that many people really listening to it. It was just somebody with a big, megaphone, for lack of a better term, that was playing it.
We don't know what real fans look like till you show up to the city.
Exactly.
You don't know how
and
many.
That's what's even more confusing to people when they're seeing these OGs go out here and sell out arenas.
Well, they've had followings in so many cities for such a long time that they know that they can go galvanize a venue, as opposed to somebody like if you're only 5 to 7 years into your career, and you've only been really big for about 3 or 4 years, and you've only really toured like on major tours, like let's say maybe 2 or 3 times. That's not like having a Snoop or a Wu-Tang or a Nas or a Jay or an Eminem or a Lil Wayne fan base. That's not the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it actually hurts the younger artists.
It does.
And, it doesn't give them the opportunity to build a fan base. I mean, look
Mike,
at Lil Baby.
I told you, Mike, they're more slaves now than they've ever been, because you have to be a slave to so many different compartmentalized parts of the game now. It's like, no, you got to be a slave to the branding. You got to be a slave to the marketing. You got to be a slave to social media. You got to be a slave to the local artists. You got to be like you a slave to so many different things just to be in that position, that it's like, that's why most of the game is independent, because it's like, man, you asked me to be a slave to about 12 different things. I think I'm just going to push this merch myself.
I think radio play still matters. I guess when it comes to numbers.
Relatively in that relationship, but that's where, okay, so radio used to matter on so many more levels than the numbers, and now it's just about the numbers, and that's what's wrong with radio.
You would think that somebody of Quavo's status would have done more numbers than he did. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I'm saying though, is that like, well, first of all, what does his fan base really look like?
Yeah, as a solo artist.
Like, yeah, this I mean, not be funny, this ain't 1998 and Bobby Brown leaving New Edition.
Well, this is what I will say. I think that if Quavo would have bit the bullet, for lack of a better term, put together a song with Offset and made that his first single, and the song with Future is dope, actually, I think that song would have definitely helped out.
But this is what I'm saying. So, and sometimes we get Atlanta skewed, Mike. It's like, no, Quavo. I mean, Mike, Quavo is not. How about this? Offset and Cardi doing a project together gonna move more units than Quavo.
Of course.
They're more of a thing.
Yeah.
So he might be the reason that the Migos existed. He might be the group leader. He might have kept them together for all these years. But as a solo artist, Mike, what does his fan base look like? Not the Migos fan base.
I don't know if his fan base is as strong as Gunna's fan base as a solo artist.
It's not. You would think it's comparable because of the Migos records and because of who he is. But the reality of the matter is that that's not really true. And that's what's funny about today's era now.
Somebody said radio is dead. And, coming into this podcast, I would agree. But radio is still around for a reason, right? People are still putting money into radio. Radio still has the ability to bump up the numbers clearly. So I can't say radio is completely dead. Radio doesn't move the needle or give you the new shit anymore. Yes.
Tom Joyner and Steve Harvey still doing morning shows?
Yeah.
You know how big their followings are? So like for the 3 minutes that they might actually play some actual music, you know how many, like, you know what I'm saying, quote unquote streams that would be? Like that's that's still invaluable help.
They have a bandwidth. You know what I'm saying? Like radio will be dead when they knock down the towers. That's when radio would officially be dead.
I mean, radio will be dead when the manipulation that's going on with the independent artists really like comes to the light, and you have to start this shit working like the boxing commission, Mike. There really ain't no checks and balances. You really don't know who to ask about these things. It's like, who is the source on like finding out how all of the numbers work?
Exactly.
Because the rules literally keep changing every 2-3 years.
They change so much, nobody's the source.
And this is what make people feel like it's some Illuminati shit. It's like, are all the heads of these major record labels, like, colluding behind closed doors to keep money out of the artist's pockets? Because it would seem so.
Well, the reason why, in my opinion, an artist like a Taylor Swift is so colossal is because of radio. Even this most recent Beyonce effort, Renaissance, radio helped to push that album. Like, the internet wasn't going to be playing Cuff It Up or whatever if radio wasn't playing it like that. Radio pushed that narrative. Same thing with Taylor. It's like radio is there for those things. Now, radio's not going to break an artist for you anymore. No, that's not going to happen. But for the people who've been around forever, they're going to make sure that they get their numbers. They're going to make sure that, their numbers are solid. And that's why, when KD3 came out, I had an issue with Hot 97 not doing their part for one of their legends. You know what I'm saying? That's what radio is here for now. It's not here to break the new guys. Jay Short with the Super Chat says Motown was finessing Rick James in the 80s. They were selling albums directly to mom and pops without tracking. They claim that he was only a gold. It was one, They claim that he has only one gold album. That's crazy. I heard the same thing was happening with Rapper's Delight over there at Sugar Hill Records. I hear that, things weren't calculated right. That record sold way more than they said it sold.
So this is what I mean. So how about this? When I used to work at the record store, there used to be another record store, but they didn't work the way that we work. They didn't have the business integrity that they did. We were both mom and pop stores, essentially. That mom and pop store, like, they did things a little bit differently. You know what I'm saying? So It's like that part of the game exists. My boss used to send me in there to get stuff early that they weren't allowed to sell. You know what I mean? So if they're selling it early, guess what, Mike? How are you tracking if it's getting sold early? You can't track it. So that store used to sell copies to the entire south side of Charlotte, like early. And we all knew where to go get it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, there's that part of the game too.
Shit, there was a place I used to go to like that too. Get it off the truck. Gritty with the Super Chat says, labels buying stream farms just like TikTok. I mean, the stream farms exist, and if you believe the stream farms exist, you have to believe that from an algorithm standpoint, they can get records going around. You can get a challenge going around. And I think one of the most incredible things that I've seen, and I think I've talked about on the show before, is the fact that Miguel has a #1 song out now that is a 13-year-old song. The song is 13 years old. The song he made 12, 13 years ago because of a TikTok challenge, it's #1. And when record labels see that they can mess with the algorithms and make a song that's 10 years old a hit again, that's dangerous. Because it's like, I don't need a new artist. Let's go back in this catalog. There's a lot of quality songs that should have been hits that weren't. Let's get this shit revamped.
I told you,
That's
Mike.
it.
I told you, Mike. Last year, I was looking at my daughter, and all of a sudden, "Pretty Brown Eyes" came on her TikTok, and she started singing the words. I was like, "What are you?" I was like, "If I played that song too much," she was like, "No." She's like, "It's gone viral on TikTok." I was like, "Pretty Brown Eyes is gone viral on TikTok." She's like, "Yeah, all the kids in high school are singing it."
Dot with the Super Chat says,
like, wild.
Nas went from selling almost 50,000 in 2020 to not even selling 20,000 2.5 years later. Something ain't right. I agree. Because everybody who was involved in that 50,000, you would think that they were engaged throughout the whole series, right? It's not like it's any lack of coverage. The coverage just strengthened, really. I feel like that gap is the lack of radio. And I think that radio support bumps up these numbers, man. It has to. Because if our station heads are accounting for like 400, 500 streams per play, imagine what a major radio station's accounting for, not only playing the record once, but playing that shit 20 times a day.
No, because imagine what would just happen if those 500 people that were like in the station head shared it with somebody else and they listened to it. It's like, no, there'd be 1,000 streams for an artist and just like chain. You know what I mean?
And just 2 plays. And that's not even with us being on
And here's what's
all
crazy.
day.
And here's what's crazy about it, because you can go back and play the shows over. It's just like playing the radio. It's like you can literally put it in the background and press play.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Antonio with the super chat says Prince called out album sales as well. He said Purple Rain in particular sold way more than he was being told, than we were being told. It wasn't just that album though, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
And when Prince said that and actually questioned the auditing system, I was like, I've never heard anybody speak like that. But it makes sense. It's like, I don't know how many records this album sold. I just know what they told me.
Well, how about this? If you go look at the numbers that the movie did and then go look at the albums that he sold, it's like, no, that shit still don't add up. You know
I
what I'm saying?
understand what people are saying when they're saying that people don't listen to the radio anymore, but it's not about people listening to the radio. It's about their reach. You know what I'm saying? Like, if their reach is a certain amount, that's going to calculate still.
And here's what people have to still need to take account for is that, well, you don't listen to the radio still. Most of the people that are like inside music or are big music fans maybe aren't into radio like that anymore. But
I don't listen to the radio.
But there are whole factions of people. Like, for instance, like my mother plays nothing but gospel music on the radio all the time. All the time. She's not streaming anything.
This is the way business works, Coop, and we've seen it with many
radio
stations.
You know what I'm saying? My mama not streaming nothing. She on the radio playing her gospel music.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of other mamas like her. You feel what I'm saying? Waking up, driving to work, listening to these morning shows and listening to whatever music it is that they choose to play for us. So it's like when people are saying radio is dead, radio's only dead in your world.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
and I was
a reason
say,
it still exists.
At the end of the day, and we've seen this in the radio business, there's been stations get shut down, right? If people weren't listening to radio anymore, those stations would be gone.
They wouldn't be here.
And the jobs would be gone. Like, they wouldn't be able to pay an Ebro. They wouldn't be able to pay a Laura Stiles or Rosenberg because they wouldn't have the money to do so. The advertisers wouldn't be there if people weren't listening to it. Right. It is what it is. So somebody's listening to it. Like you said, you don't listen to it. I don't listen to it. But we can't acknowledge the fact that, we can't deny the fact that people are still listening to it. You know, it's not completely dead.
What's wrong with
it's not as strong as it once was, but it's not dead.
What's wrong with the people in the 15% is they sometimes don't understand that they in the 15%, and there's a whole 85% out there, Mike. You know, when you're in the 15%, you righteous. That don't make you right. There's a whole 85% out there.
Yeah.
You feel me? And so most of the people that say radio is dead, we understand you're in a 15%, not an 85%.
I think my thing with the whole radio thing and even bringing it up is the fact that radio has, for lack of a better term, inflated the numbers in a way where we're thinking certain people are doing more numbers than they are. Like, people are confused with the fact that the hottest artist or the one that's doing the numbers isn't doing the shows that some of the OGs are doing. And that's because these numbers are slightly inflated.
I'm wondering what the next change is going to be, Mike, because if the game is being played this way, like you're saying, well, there's a cycle of artists that really like Mike, name an artist under 30 that you could see getting played the way Drake does in hip-hop sphere or Adele in the pop sphere. Where is that person? That person doesn't exist anymore because of how the game exists. And so what this game is running the risk of doing is having it turned on its head very, very soon when these artists who fit perfectly into this version of the machine stop producing.
Yeah.
But they have shown that they will continue to change the game in whatever ways that it behooves them to make it work for them, even at the dilapidation of the artist, the dilapidation of the music. It's a problem. It's very problematic.
What Russ and NBA Youngboy are doing is so hip-hop. Right?
Russ's
These guys don't
dope.
get any radio play. They got fans. They selling out wherever they go. They're making money, and they're doing it without the machine. And like you said, the machine didn't make Russ. The machine didn't make NBA Youngboy. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I can't name NBA Youngboy songs like that.
Russ should be on the radio.
That man he got fans out of this world.
Russ shit should be on the radio right
now,
Mike. That Santiago album, he got about
He's
3 or 4
independent.
joints. He got 3 or 4 joints on there that belong on radio.
He's independent.
Right
They're not
now.
going to play him.
They're not going to do it.
You know what I'm saying? And I think at some point, and I don't know when we get to that point, and I guess that's when we know radio will be on its last leg, they're going to have to start supporting the independent artists like a Russ. Not saying every independent artist, but the people who are able to create their own buzz to this degree, they're going to have to bite the bullet and understand that the days of them making a hip hop star, I think are over. I mean, who do you think is the last hip hop star that the machine created?
I mean, we've been having the Jack Harlow conversation, Mike.
That didn't go well.
The last project was dope, but it hasn't come to fruition. Even with the movie role, even with the dope project.
Yeah. I mean, they were projecting once again, and I'm not calling out Ebro. I just, this is one of the radio shows that I actually watch because Ebro knows his shit. But I remember when Harlow got on Ebro in the morning, and Ebro was telling Harlow that he's out of here. He's like, it's probably the last time we're going to interview you because you're about to be super big. Somebody told them that that's what this was going to be, and it didn't work out like that because the people didn't respond in that faction. I think that was their attempt to make the next star, but it didn't work. I think Cardi B might be the last time I could think that they were able to do that.
How many rap albums she make?
She got one. She said she's working on one now.
That's part of how you know that the game is dying a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Because if it was lucrative, they would keep her out there.
If it was lucrative for her, she'd stay out there.
Mm-hmm. Antonio with the super chat says, those numbers ain't real without inflation. Push.
Right.